The desert wind carried secrets that night. Nathan Cross stood on the porch of his weathered ranch house, a half-empty whiskey bottle in his calloused hand. 5 years. 5 years since he'd lost everything. 5 years since he'd stopped believing in mercy, in justice, in anything beyond the next sunrise. The Arizona territory stretched before him, endless, unforgiving, honest in its cruelty, just like life. He raised the bottle to his lips when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong to the wind. Footsteps, stumbling, desperate. Nathan's hand moved instinctively to the Colt at his hip. Out here, strangers meant trouble. Always had. Always would. Then she appeared. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe and let us know where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us. Now, back to our story. A woman emerged from the darkness, her silhouette framed against the moonlit desert. She wore Apache clothing, torn and dust-covered. Blood stained her left shoulder. Her long black hair hung wild and tangled. But her eyes, those eyes blazed with something Nathan recognized immediately. Defiance. She stumbled up the porch steps and collapsed against the railing, her breathing ragged. When she looked up at him, there was no pleading in her gaze, only determination. "You are Nathan Cross," she said. Not a question. A statement. He didn't lower his gun. "Who's asking?" "My name is Maka." Her voice was steady despite the pain etched across her face. "I need your help." "I don't help anyone." Nathan's words came out flat, cold. He meant them. "I heard different." Maka pressed her hand against her wounded shoulder. "In the town, they say you are alone. That you speak to no one. But also..." She paused, her eyes meeting his. "They say you are fair. That you do not hate without reason." Nathan laughed, a bitter, empty sound. "They don't know me very well." "Perhaps." Maka straightened, despite her obvious pain. "But you have not shot me yet. That is something." Behind her, in the distance, Nathan saw dust rising against the night sky. Riders moving fast. "Who's following you?" he asked. "My brother." "My father's warriors." Maka's jaw tightened. "They come to take me back. To force me to marry a man I do not choose. A cruel old chief who wants another wife like other men want another horse. Apache business, not mine. It will be yours when they arrive." Maka stepped closer. The moonlight caught her face, and Nathan saw something that made his breath catch. A scar. An old arrow wound running from her shoulder blade down her back, partially visible through the torn fabric. Elena had carried the same scar. His wife. His Elena. The coincidence hit him like a fist to the gut. For a moment, he was 5 years in the past, watching Elena laugh as she hung laundry, that same scar visible in the morning sun. She'd gotten it as a child, she'd told him. An accident during a raid. "Please." For the first time, Maka's voice wavered. "I have nowhere else to go. They will drag me back. They will break me. I only want to choose my own path. Is that so wrong?" Nathan looked at the approaching dust cloud. Maybe 5 minutes away. Maybe less. Every instinct screamed at him to send her away. Apache had taken everything from him. His wife, his son, his future. Why should he care if one of their women faced the same fate? But that scar. That damn scar. And something else. Something in the way she stood. Wounded, hunted, alone, but refusing to beg. Refusing to surrender. "Get inside," Nathan heard himself say. Maka's eyes widened. "You will help me?" "I didn't say that." I said, get inside. He grabbed her uninjured arm, pulling her through the door. Stay away from the windows. Don't make a sound. He barely had time to settle her in the back room before the riders arrived. 6 Apache warriors, led by a man who could only be Maka's brother. He had her eyes, fierce, unyielding. Nathan Cross, the leader called out in English. His accent was thick but clear. We know she is here. We saw her tracks. Give her back, and we ride away. No trouble. Nathan stepped onto the porch, his rifle held loose but ready. Nobody here but me and the rats. Do not lie, white man. My sister. I said nobody's here. Nathan's voice dropped to a dangerous quiet. Now get off my property. The leader, Kuruk, Nathan would later learn his name, studied him for a long moment. Behind him, the other warriors shifted restlessly, hands near their weapons. You make a mistake, Kuruk finally said. She is our blood. Our responsibility, not yours. And this is my land. My decision, not yours. The standoff stretched. Nathan could feel Maka watching from inside, could sense her fear despite her earlier bravado. The night air crackled with potential violence. Then Kuruk nodded slowly. We will return, he said. And next time, we will not ask. They wheeled their horses and disappeared into the darkness. Nathan waited until the dust settled before going back inside. Maka stood in the shadows, her face pale. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. Nathan grabbed medical supplies from a cabinet. They'll be back. Probably tomorrow, and when they come, I might not be able to stop them. Why did you help me? Maka asked as he began cleaning her wound. If you think I will bring you trouble. Nathan paused, the old memories washing over him. Elena's laugh, his son's smile, the day he'd buried them both in the hard desert ground. I don't know, he said honestly. Maybe I'm tired of running from the past. Maybe I'm just a fool. Or maybe, Maka said softly, you are more than you pretend to be. Outside, the desert wind continued to blow, and somewhere in the darkness, Nathan Cross's carefully built walls began, just barely, to crack. Dawn broke cold and unforgiving over the Arizona desert. Nathan hadn't slept. He'd spent the night on the porch, rifle across his lap, watching the horizon for signs of Kuruk's return. Maka had finally dozed off near dawn, exhausted from pain and fear. Now, as golden light spread across the endless sand, Nathan knew they couldn't stay here. Kuruk would return with more men, maybe the whole tribe. His small ranch would become a battlefield, and he'd seen enough blood for one lifetime. He went inside. Maka was awake, sitting stiffly on the old wooden chair, her wounded shoulder freshly bandaged. We're leaving, Nathan said. Pack light. We ride in 10 minutes. Where are we going? Canyon country. 20 miles north. Nobody goes there. Too rocky for horses. Too remote for settlers. We can hide there while your brother cools off. Maka stood slowly. He will not cool off. Kuruk is determined. He believes in family honor above all else. Then we'd better move fast. They rode hard through the morning, Nathan leading them through dried riverbeds and rocky passes that would hide their tracks. By noon, they'd reached the canyon, a maze of red stone walls and narrow passages that wound deep into the earth. Nathan found a sheltered overhang with a natural spring nearby, a good defensive position, a place where 2 people could hold off many if it came to that. We'll stay here until I figure out our next move, he said, dismounting. Maka slid from her horse, wincing. The hard ride had reopened her wound slightly. Fresh blood seeped through the bandage. Sit, Nathan ordered. grabbing his medical kit. As he worked, rebandaging her shoulder, Maka studied his face. "You have done this before," she observed. "Cared for wounds." "Had to. Out here, you learn to patch yourself up or you die."
That is not what I mean. Maka's voice was quiet. You have cared for someone. Someone you loved.
Nathan's hands paused. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, almost against his will, the words came. "Elena, my wife. She got hurt once. Fell from a horse. Broke her arm. I set it. Cared for her." The memory was sharp, painful. "She said I had gentle hands. For a cowboy." "What happened to her?" Nathan finished tying off the bandage with more force than necessary. "She's dead. 5 years ago. Her and my son, Thomas. He was 4. The silence that followed was heavy, complete. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. "How?" Maka finally asked. "Apache raid. Or what I thought was an Apache raid." Nathan stood, turning away. "They attacked our wagon on the road to town. Took Elena and Thomas. I tracked them for days, but..." He stopped. "I never found them. Not alive." Maka absorbed this, her expression unreadable. "And now you help an Apache woman. Why?" "I told you." "I don't know." "I think you do." Maka stood, moving to face him. "I think you are tired of hating. It is exhausting, yes? To carry such anger?" Nathan laughed bitterly. "You don't know anything about it." "I know more than you think." Maka's eyes held his. "My mother was killed by white soldiers when I was 10. They burned our village, shot anyone who ran. I watched her die." She paused. "For years, I hated all white people. Everyone. But hatred," she touched her chest, "it eats you from inside, makes you hollow." "So what changed?" "I met a white trader. Old man, kind eyes. He shared his food with me when I was starving. Asked nothing in return." Maka smiled sadly. "I realized that evil has no color, no tribe. Some people are cruel, some are kind. That is all." Nathan wanted to argue, wanted to hold onto his anger like a shield. But sitting here with this woman who'd lost as much as he had, who'd suffered as deeply, something in him began to shift.
Tell me about your family, he said instead. Why do they want you to marry this chief?
Maka sat again, staring into the small fire Nathan had built. "My father is traditional. Old ways, old beliefs. This chief, Nalnish, he is powerful, rich in horses and land. My father thinks the marriage will bring honor to our family, protection to our tribe." "And what do you think?" "I think Nalnish already has 3 wives, all of them beaten, silent, afraid. I think honor means nothing if you are dead inside." Her voice hardened. "I will not be his property. I would rather die free than live in chains." Nathan understood that. God help him, he understood it completely. They spent the rest of the day in careful silence, each lost in their own thoughts. As evening fell and stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, Nathan found himself watching Maka as she tended the fire.
She moved with grace despite her injury. Strong, capable, nothing like the helpless victim he'd expected.
"Nathan," she said suddenly, her eyes still on the flames. "Your wife, Elena. What was she like?" The question should have hurt, should have brought the familiar wave of grief and rage. But instead, Nathan found himself remembering the good times. Elena's laugh, the way she'd hum while cooking, how she'd dance with Thomas in the evening light. She was... He paused, searching for words. She was sunshine. Even on the darkest days, she found something to smile about. Drove me crazy sometimes. All that optimism. She sounds beautiful.
She was. Nathan's voice grew quiet. Inside and out.
Maka looked up at him then, and in the firelight, Nathan saw something that startled him. Understanding. Connection. The recognition of one wounded soul seeing another. Their eyes held for a moment too long. Nathan felt something stir in his chest. Something he'd thought died 5 years ago in the desert. He stood abruptly. I'll take first watch. You should sleep. Nathan? Get some rest, Maka. Tomorrow, we figure out what comes next. He walked away into the darkness, his heart pounding inexplicably. Behind him, he heard Maka settle down by the fire, but he didn't look back. He couldn't. Because for the first time in 5 years, Nathan Cross felt something other than emptiness. And it terrified him. 3 days passed in the canyon like a dream suspended between two worlds. Nathan and Maka fell into an unexpected rhythm. She gathered firewood despite her healing shoulder. He hunted rabbits and watched for signs of pursuit. In the evenings, they shared stories by the fire, carefully at first, then with growing openness. She told him about growing up Apache, about learning to track deer before she could read, about her mother's songs. He told her about building his ranch, about Thomas's first steps, about the life he'd planned before it all burned away. The walls between them crumbled slowly, stone by stone.
On the fourth morning, everything changed.
Nathan was checking the horses when he heard it. The distant sound of hoofbeats echoing off canyon walls. Many horses, coming fast. Maka! He ran back to their camp. They found us! Get ready to move! But it was too late. Kuruk and his warriors appeared at the canyon entrance, blocking their only escape route. 8 men this time, all armed, all determined. Nathan grabbed his rifle. Stay behind me. No. Maka stepped forward, her chin raised. This is my fight. Kuruk dismounted slowly, his eyes fixed on his sister. When he spoke, his voice carried across the canyon in Apache. Maka responded in the same language, sharp and defiant. English, Nathan interrupted. If we're doing this, I want to understand.
Kuruk turned to him, respect flickering briefly in his eyes. I tell my sister to come home. She refuses, as always.
Because you want to cage me. Maka's voice rang out. Give me to a man who will break me. It is father's wish. It is decided. I decide my own life now. Kuruk's jaw tightened. You shame our family. You run to this white man. He showed me more honor in 3 days than father showed me in 20 years. Maka's words cut like knives. He asked nothing, demanded nothing. He simply let me be human. Something flickered across Kuruk's face. Pain, perhaps, or recognition. But then it hardened again. Enough words. You come now, or we take you. The warriors moved forward. Nathan raised his rifle. Not another step. You would die for her? Kuruk asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. A woman you barely know? An Apache? Nathan's finger rested on the trigger. 5 years ago, he would have said no. 5 years ago, he would have handed her over without a second thought. But that was before. Before he'd seen her courage. Before he'd heard her laugh at his bad jokes. Before he'd watched her tend the fire with the same careful grace Eleanor once had. Yeah, he said quietly. I would. For a long moment, nobody moved. The canyon held its breath. Then Kuruk drew his knife and charged. Nathan fired, deliberately missing, the bullet kicking up dust at Kuruk's feet. The warrior didn't stop. He slammed into Nathan, and they went down hard, rolling in the dirt. Kuruk was younger, faster. His blade flashed toward Nathan's throat. Nathan caught his wrist, straining, feeling the tip of the knife inches from his skin. "Stop!" Maka's scream echoed off the canyon walls.
She threw herself between them, arms spread wide. Kuruk, please! I am your sister. Does that mean nothing?
Kuruk froze, his knife still raised. Behind them, Nathan heard the distinctive sound of rifles being cocked. The town sheriff and 3 deputies had arrived, drawn by Nathan's earlier message. "Everybody lower your weapons," Sheriff Henry Morrison called out. "Now!" The Apache warriors looked to Kuruk. The moment stretched impossibly thin. Then, slowly, Kuruk pulled back. He stood, breathing hard, blood from a cut on his arm dripping into the dust. Nathan had gotten in one good hit with his own knife. "Let me help you," Nathan said, rising carefully. "That needs treatment." Kuruk stared at him like he'd spoken in tongues. "You want to help me? After I tried to kill you?" "Yeah, crazy, right?" Nathan retrieved his medical kit. "Sit down before you bleed out." What happened next would become legend in both the Apache camps and the frontier towns. Nathan Cross, the hermit who hated all Indians, bandaging the wounds of the warrior who'd just tried to kill him. As Nathan worked, Kuruk studied him intently. Finally, he spoke, his voice low enough that only Nathan could hear. "The men who took your wife and son, the ones dressed as Apache." He paused. "That was not us." Nathan's hands stopped moving. "What?" "5 winters ago. Yes, I remember. Our scouts saw the attack, but those were not Apache, white men in our clothes. We watched from the ridge. We did not understand why." The world tilted. Nathan grabbed Kuruk's arm. "You're lying." "I do not lie about such things." Kuruk's eyes were steady, honest. "We thought it strange. Apache do not raid that way. Too organized. Too cold. But we said nothing. Who would believe us?" Nathan's mind reeled. White men, dressed as Apache. But why? Who would dash? Sheriff Henry approached cautiously. "Nathan? Everything all right?" Nathan looked up at his old friend, saw something in Henry's expression. Guilt, knowledge, understanding. "Henry," Nathan said slowly, "you know something, don't you?" The sheriff's shoulders sagged. "Not here. Not now. But yes, we need to talk." Kuruk stood, testing his bandaged arm. He looked at Maka, then at Nathan. Something had shifted in his eyes. "My sister chooses her path. I see that now." He turned to his warriors, speaking in Apache. They looked confused, but nodded. "We go." But Cross. He met Nathan's gaze. "Find the truth. Find who really killed your family. They deserve justice." "Wait," Maka called out. "Kuruk, what about father? What about—" "I will handle father." Kuruk's expression softened. "You were right, sister. Honor without freedom is just another word for slavery." He mounted his horse. "Be well. Both of you." The warriors rode away, leaving only dust and questions hanging in the desert air. Maka turned to Nathan, her eyes wide. "What he said?" "About your family. Do you believe him?" Nathan looked at Sheriff Henry, who wouldn't meet his eyes. "Yeah," Nathan said quietly. "I think I do. And I think it's time we learned the whole truth." The canyon suddenly felt smaller, darker, full of secrets about to crawl into the light. Sheriff Henry Morrison's office smelled of old leather and older secrets. Nathan sat across from his friend, Maka, standing quietly by the window. The ride back to town had been silent, heavy with unspoken questions. Now, in the dim lamplight of evening, those questions demanded answers. "How long have you known?" Nathan's voice was dangerously calm. Henry poured 3 glasses of whiskey with shaking hands. 5 years, give or take. 5 years. Nathan repeated the words like they were poison. You've known for 5 years that Apache didn't kill my family, and you said nothing. It wasn't that simple, Nathan. You have to understand. Understand what? That you're a coward? That you let me hate an entire people for something they didn't do? Nathan stood, his chair scraping violently against the floor. Explain it to me, Henry. Make me understand. Henry downed his whiskey in one gulp. Silas Merrick, the land baron. He hired me fresh out of training, made me sheriff of this town. I owed him everything, my badge, my salary, my position. He refilled his glass. 3 months into the job, I started noticing things. Men leaving town in Apache clothes, coming back with blood on their hands. Merrick's men. Maka moved closer, listening intently.
Why? She asked. Why would he do such a thing?
Land. Henry's laugh was bitter. It always comes down to land. The Apache territories north of here. Prime grazing land, water rights, mineral deposits. Merrick wanted it all, but the government wouldn't move the tribes without cause, so he created cause. Nathan's hands clenched into fists. The raids. Staged. Every single one. His men would dress as Apache, attack settlers, stir up hatred. Then he'd pressure the government to relocate the tribes. Once they were gone, he'd swoop in, buy the land for nothing. Henry finally met Nathan's eyes. Your family wasn't a target, Nathan. They were just in the wrong place. Witnesses to one of his operations. The room spun. Nathan gripped the desk to steady himself. Elena, Thomas, gone. Not because of war or ancient hatreds, but because of one man's greed. You had proof? Nathan's voice came out strangled. Henry nodded slowly. He moved to a locked drawer, pulled out a worn leather folder. I've been keeping these for 5 years. Bills of sale for Apache clothing, testimonies from men with guilty consciences, Merrick's own ledgers showing payments to his mercenaries. He pushed the folder across the desk. I was waiting for the right moment. When Merrick's political power weakened. When I had enough courage. Courage! Nathan slammed his fist on the desk. My wife and son are dead because you didn't have courage. I know. Henry's shout echoed off the walls. You think I don't know that? You think I sleep at night? I see their faces, Nathan. Elena's smile. Thomas's laugh. Every damn day. Tears streaked down his weathered face. I was afraid. Merrick owned this town. Still does, mostly. Men who crossed him disappeared. I told myself I was being smart, strategic, waiting for the perfect opportunity. He wiped his eyes roughly. Truth is, I was just a coward. You're right about that. Maka placed a gentle hand on Nathan's shoulder. What matters now is justice. Can we use these documents? Henry nodded. Merrick's grip has loosened lately. Bad investments, political enemies in the territorial government. He's not untouchable anymore. He looked at Nathan. If we move carefully, gather witnesses, present this to the territorial judge, we can destroy him. Nathan opened the folder with trembling hands. Page after page of evidence. Dates, names, transactions. the systematic destruction of innocent lives, all documented in neat handwriting. His vision blurred with rage. Where is he? Nathan's voice dropped to a whisper. Where is Merrick right now?
Nathan, don't.
Where? Henry sighed. His estate. 10 miles east. But listen to me. If you go in there with guns blazing, you'll hang. He's still got friends, still got lawyers. We need to be smart about this.
Smart! Nathan laughed without humor. I've been smart for 5 years. Smart and alone and drowning in whiskey. Maybe it's time to be stupid.
Maka stepped in front of him, forcing him to meet her eyes. Nathan Cross. Look at me. Her voice was firm, commanding. Revenge is easy. Justice is hard. If you kill this man, you become what he is. A murderer. Is that what Eleanor would want? Is that what Thomas would remember you for? Nathan's breath came in ragged gasps. He took everything. No. Maka's hand found his. He took your past. Do not let him take your future also. We can beat him the right way. Together. Nathan looked down at their joined hands. Her fingers, slim and brown, intertwined with his, rough and scarred. Different worlds, different pains, somehow fitting together. How? He asked hoarsely. How do we do this right? Henry stood, newfound determination in his eyes. We build a case. Contact the territorial authorities. Get Merrick's former employees to testify. Some of them are ready to talk. I've been laying groundwork quietly. He tapped the folder. These documents prove patterns of payment. Match those with testimonies, and we've got him. How long will it take? Few weeks, maybe a month. We need to be thorough. Nathan wanted to refuse. Wanted to ride to Merrick's estate tonight and put a bullet in the man's heart. But Maka's hand in his anchored him, reminded him that revenge wasn't the same as justice. 1 month, Nathan said finally. But if he tries to run, then we move fast. Henry extended his hand. Partners? Nathan stared at the offered hand for a long moment. Trust didn't come easy anymore. But Henry's eyes held genuine remorse, genuine determination. He shook. Partners. As they left the sheriff's office, night had fully fallen. Stars blazed overhead in the vast desert sky. Maka and Nathan walked in silence toward his ranch. You were right, Nathan said eventually. About revenge. About Elena and Thomas. I know what it is to want blood for blood. Maka's voice was soft. But I also know it does not bring them back. It only makes more ghosts. They reached his porch. Nathan turned to face her, really seeing her for the first time in days. This woman who'd burst into his life like a desert storm, who'd challenged him, understood him, saved him from himself. Thank you, he said simply. For what? For reminding me who I used to be. Before the hate, before the anger. Maka smiled, a real smile, warm and bright. That man was always there. He was just hiding. Nathan felt something crack open in his chest. Something that had been frozen for 5 years. He reached out, his hand hovering near her face, then dropped it. Not yet. Not while Eleanor's death was still unsolved. Not while justice remained undone. But someday, maybe someday. Come on, he said. Let's get some rest. We've got work to do. As they entered the house, neither noticed the figure watching from the shadows. One of Merrick's men, already riding hard toward his master's estate. The game was changing, and Silas Merrick didn't like surprises. The next 3 weeks moved like a gathering storm. Nathan, Maka, and Sheriff Henry worked methodically, building their case against Silas Merrick brick by careful brick. They tracked down former employees, men whose consciences had grown heavy with guilt. A ranch hand who'd watched Merrick's mercenaries dress in Apache clothing. A bookkeeper who'd falsified records. A stable master who'd provided horses for the fake raids.
One by one, these men agreed to testify, some out of remorse, others out of fear that Merrick would eventually silence them permanently.
The documents Henry had saved became the spine of their case. Matched with testimony, they painted a damning picture of systematic fraud, murder, and land theft. But Merrick wasn't idle. His spies reported back. His lawyers began preparing defenses, and his hired guns started making quiet threats around town. Windows broken, horses spooked, messages left in blood on barn doors. Mind your business. Nathan kept Maka close, never letting her venture far from his sight. She'd become more than just a woman he was protecting. She'd become his partner in this fight, his anchor when rage threatened to overwhelm him. Late one evening, as they reviewed documents by lamplight, Maka spoke quietly. "When this is over, what will you do?" Nathan looked up from a ledger. "What do you mean?" "Justice or not, your family is still gone. The pain remains. What comes after?" He'd been avoiding that question for weeks. "I don't know. Haven't thought that far ahead." "I think you should." Maka set down her papers. "Because I see a man at a crossroads. One path leads back to loneliness and whiskey. The other," she paused, "the other leads forward."
Forward to what?
"To life. Real life, not just survival." Her eyes held his. "You have been dead for 5 years, Nathan Cross. Perhaps it is time to live again." Before he could respond, Sheriff Henry burst through the door. "It's happening!" Merrick knows we're close. He's trying to run. Nathan was on his feet instantly. "When?" "Now. Tonight. My deputy saw his men loading wagons, preparing horses. He's headed for the Mexican border. Henry checked his rifle. If he crosses, we'll never get him back." "Then we stop him before he crosses." Nathan grabbed his gun belt. "Maka, you stay here." "No." She stood, resolute. "I have earned the right to see this through." Nathan wanted to argue, but he saw the determination in her eyes. This wasn't just his fight anymore. It was theirs. "Fine. But you stay close to me. Promise?" "Promise." They rode hard through the darkness, picking up 3 of Henry's deputies along the way. By midnight, they'd reached the outskirts of Merrick's estate, a sprawling mansion that looked like it had been transplanted from the East Coast into the harsh Arizona desert. "We don't have a warrant," one deputy pointed out nervously. "Don't need one," Henry replied. "We're not arresting him on his property. We're going to do something better." He turned to Nathan. "You remember the town square? The big platform where they hold speeches?" Nathan understood immediately. Public trial. Not a legal one, not yet, but we get everyone together, townspeople, ranchers, even some of the Apache, if Maka's brother will come. We present the evidence in the open. Let the whole territory see what Merrick is. Henry's eyes gleamed. He owns judges and lawyers, but he can't own public opinion. Once everyone knows what he did, his power crumbles. It was brilliant. Risky, but brilliant. They spent the next day spreading word throughout the territory. Nathan rode to the Apache camps, found Kuruk, explained everything. The warrior listened with growing anger, then nodded grimly. "We will come. Our people deserve to hear this truth." By the following evening, the town square was packed. Ranchers, farmers, merchants, Apache families. Hundreds of people gathered under hastily strung lanterns. Word had spread like wildfire. The truth about the raids was finally coming out. Merrick arrived flanked by his lawyers, his hired guns hanging back in the shadows. He was a tall man, silver-haired and distinguished-looking, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than most people made in a year. "This is absurd," he announced loudly. "An illegal proceeding with no legal standing. I don't have to participate in this circus." "Then leave," Nathan called out from the platform. "But everyone here will know you ran." "They'll know why." Merrick's jaw tightened. His lawyers whispered urgently in his ear. He couldn't leave. Doing so would look like an admission of guilt. His own arrogance trapped him. "Fine," he said coldly. "Present your fairy tales. When you're done, my lawyers will tear them apart." What followed was 3 hours of devastating testimony. Former employees spoke with shaking voices about orders they'd followed, crimes they'd witnessed. The bookkeeper presented ledgers showing payments to mercenaries. The ranch hand described watching men transform themselves into fake Apache raiders.
Henry presented the documents, explaining each one methodically. Dates, payments, patterns of deception.
The crowd's mood shifted from curiosity to shock to outrage. Then Nathan spoke. He told them about Eleanor and Thomas, about 5 years of misdirected hatred, about the real monster who'd destroyed his family, not Apache warriors, but the respected man standing before them. When he finished, silence blanketed the square. Merrick tried to maintain his composure. Lies. All lies from disgruntled employees and a grief-stricken man looking for someone to blame. "Then explain the ledgers," Henry challenged. "Explain the matching dates. Explain why 12 different people are telling the same story." Merrick's lawyers whispered frantically. The hired guns shifted nervously, realizing the crowd's mood had turned dangerous. "I built this town!" Merrick shouted suddenly, his facade cracking. "I brought civilization to this wasteland!" If I had to bend a few rules, make hard decisions, that's what leaders do. Those Apache lands were wasted on savages. I made them productive. The square erupted, people shouting, Apache warriors standing with hands on weapons, townspeople pressing forward angrily. Years of lies, years of manufactured hatred, all collapsing under the weight of truth. Merrick realized his mistake too late. In trying to justify his actions, he'd confessed. "Get back!" His hired guns drew weapons, surrounding him. But the crowd wasn't backing down. Nathan saw it happening. The potential for mob justice, for violence that would solve nothing and create new wounds. He stepped forward, hands raised. "Stop! Everyone stop!" Gradually, the noise subsided. "This man deserves punishment," Nathan said clearly. "But not like this. Not with ropes and rage. We do this the right way." He turned to Merrick. "You're done in this territory. Your land, your money, your power, gone. The territorial judge has these documents now. Your properties will be seized. Your contracts voided. You can't. We can. And we have." Henry stepped forward. "Silas Merrick, you're finished. Leave this territory and never come back. If you do, you'll face formal charges, and next time you won't have lawyers to hide behind." Merrick's face contorted with rage and defeat. He looked around at the crowd, people who'd once feared and respected him, now staring with contempt and hatred. "This isn't over," he spat. "Yeah," Nathan said quietly. "It is." 2 deputies escorted Merrick to his horse. His hired guns, seeing which way the wind blew, melted away into the darkness. The great man rode out of town alone, broken, his empire of lies crumbling behind him. As he disappeared into the desert night, the crowd erupted in cheers. Nathan felt Maka's hand slip into his. "You did it." "Justice, not revenge." "We did it," he corrected. "Together." And for the first time in 5 years, Nathan Cross smiled. A real smile, full of hope instead of bitterness. 1 year later, the desert had a way of healing wounds, given enough time. Nathan stood on the porch of his ranch, no longer a lonely outpost, but a home filled with life and possibility. The morning sun painted the Arizona landscape in shades of gold and amber, and somewhere inside, he could hear Maka humming softly. The sound made him smile. It still surprised him sometimes how much had changed, how much he'd changed. After Merrick's exile, the territorial government had seized his lands. What followed was unprecedented. A negotiated settlement between the Apache tribes and the settlers. Fair boundaries, trade agreements, shared water rights. It wasn't perfect. Old hatreds didn't disappear overnight. But it was a beginning. Nathan's ranch had become something unexpected. A neutral meeting ground. Apache families traded goods with settlers here. Children from both communities played together in his yard. It was messy and complicated and beautiful. The door opened behind him. Maka stepped out, her hand resting on her swollen belly. 7 months pregnant, glowing with health and happiness. "You are thinking too much again," she said, settling into the chair beside him. "Just remembering how it was before." Nathan took her hand. "Hard to believe sometimes that you were once a lonely, angry man who drank too much whiskey." Maka's eyes sparkled with gentle teasing. "Something like that. You are still stubborn. And you still drink whiskey." She squeezed his hand. "But yes, you are different. Better." A cloud of dust appeared on the horizon. Riders approaching. Nathan tensed instinctively, then relaxed. He recognized them now, Kuruk and a small delegation from the Apache settlement. Maka's brother had become an unexpected ally. The two men had developed a mutual respect born from that day in the canyon. They'd never be best friends, but they understood each other. The riders arrived. Kuruk dismounted, nodding to Nathan. "Cross, sister." He used English now when visiting. "Another small bridge between worlds." "Kuruk." Nathan gestured to the shade. "Water? Coffee?" "Coffee, and we must talk." Something in his tone made Nathan alert. "Problem?" "Not problem. Opportunity." Kuruk waited until they were seated, Maka between them. "My sister, Ayana, she is now our leader, yes?" Maka nodded. Their old chief had died peacefully 6 months ago. The transition of power had been smooth, progressive. Ayana believed in the new arrangements, in finding ways forward instead of clinging to the past. "Ayana sends proposal," Kuruk continued. "The lands that were Merrick's, government gives to Apache and settlers together. Shared territory." He paused. "But there must be someone both sides trust. Someone who lives on the boundary, who keeps peace." Nathan began to understand. "You're asking me to be liaison, bridge person." Kuruk looked uncomfortable with the formal words. "You and Maka, you already do this, yes? People come here, they talk, they trade, children play together." He gestured at the ranch. "Make it official. Give you authority from both sides." Maka's eyes widened. "Kuruk, this is big responsibility." "Yes." Her brother's expression softened slightly. "But I know no one better. You chose freedom. You chose love over tradition. And you," he looked at Nathan, "you chose justice over revenge. These are the qualities we need now." Nathan absorbed this. It would mean more work, more complications, more people depending on him. Everything he'd avoided for 5 years. But it would also mean purpose, connection, a chance to build something lasting from the ashes of loss.
I need to think about it, Nathan said finally.
Of course. Kuruk stood. Ayana comes tomorrow. You tell her then. After he left, Nathan and Maka sat in silence for a long moment. What do you think? He asked.
I think. Maka tilted her head thoughtfully. I think Elena would be proud of you. Thomas, too.
The name still brought pain, but it was different now. Softer. More like remembrance than raw grief.
Tell me what you really think, Nathan pressed.
I think you are afraid. Maka turned to face him fully. Afraid that if you commit to this new life, this new purpose, you somehow betray your old family, betray their memory. She was right. Part of him still felt guilty for being happy, for moving forward when they couldn't. But Nathan, Maka continued gently, loving again does not mean forgetting. Building something new does not erase what came before. She placed his hand on her belly, where their child moved beneath. This baby, our child, carries Elena and Thomas too, in your stories, in your heart. They are part of what makes you the man I love. Nathan felt tears prick his eyes. When did you get so wise? I was always wise. You were just too stubborn to notice. He laughed, pulling her close. Yeah, I was. The next day, Ayana arrived with a larger delegation. Nathan recognized the formal nature of the visit. This wasn't just a proposal, it was a ceremony. The Apache leader was younger than Nathan expected, perhaps 30, with keen eyes that missed nothing. She carried herself with natural authority. Nathan Cross, she said in clear English. My brother and sister speak highly of you. They say you are fair, honest, that you see people, not just tribes. I try, Nathan replied simply. That is all anyone can do. Ayana gestured, and her people brought forward gifts, blankets, tools, weapons. These are tokens of respect, of partnership. Sheriff Henry arrived then, with several town leaders carrying their own offerings. Nathan realized this had been coordinated, both sides coming together simultaneously. Mr. Cross, Henry said formally, playing his role. The territorial government recognizes your unique position, your service to justice and peace. He produced an official-looking document. They authorize you as official mediator for this region, with powers to settle disputes and maintain order. Ayana produced her own document, marked with tribal symbols. And the Apache Council names you, friend of the people, with authority to speak for us in settler matters. Nathan looked at Maka, who smiled encouragingly, then at the assembled faces, Apache, settlers, people who'd been enemies a year ago, now standing together. I accept, he said. On one condition. Ayana raised an eyebrow. Speak it. This only works if we're honest with each other. No more secrets, no more assuming the worst. Nathan's voice grew stronger. We'll disagree sometimes. We'll frustrate each other. But we talk it through. We find solutions together. Agreed, Ayana said immediately. Agreed, Henry echoed. What followed was unlike any ceremony Nathan had ever witnessed. Apache and settlers mingling, sharing food, talking cautiously but genuinely. Children ran between the groups, laughing, oblivious to old boundaries. As evening fell and people began to depart, Kuruk approached Nathan one last time. My sister made right choice, he said gruffly. Which sister? Nathan asked with a slight smile. Both, Kuruk almost smiled back. But I speak of Maka. She saw what you could become before you saw it yourself. She's got a gift for that. Yes, very annoying gift. Now Kuruk did smile. Take care of her and the baby, or I will return. And next time, I will not be so gentle. Understood.
They clasped forearms. Not quite a hug, but more than a handshake. Understanding passing between them.
As the last visitors departed, Nathan and Maka stood together, watching the sunset paint the desert in impossible colors.
Long road ahead, Maka said softly.
Yeah, Nathan agreed. But we're walking it together. She leaned into him. No more loneliness. No more anger. No more running from the past. Only building the future. Nathan pulled her close, feeling their child move between them. A new life. A new beginning. Proof that hope could grow even in the harshest desert. In the distance, Apache and settler camps glowed with evening fires. Separate still, but closer than before. Baby steps towards something better. It wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks, conflicts, people who resisted change. But standing here with Maka, with their future literally growing inside her, Nathan felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years. Peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of purpose. Not forgetting, but moving forward. Not the end of one story, but the beginning of another. The desert wind whispered across the land, carrying seeds of change. And Nathan Cross, once broken by loss, now stood whole, ready to help build a world where his child could grow up, seeing people instead of enemies. Where love mattered more than hate, where the future mattered more than the past. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the first stars emerged. A new day was coming, and Nathan Cross would be there to meet it.